everyone. As you probably know, Sandy and I live in Naples, Florida. That's the part of Southwest Florida that just took the brunt of this Hurricane Ian. We live near the coast in Naples and actually have a natural waterway in our community to the Gulf. Fortunately, we only had minimal landscape damage and no flooding of our house. We were blessed and lucky, very lucky. For today's topic, we're going to explore whether the world is witnessing another international space race. This time, it's going to be between China and the US. However, there are many differences from the earlier space race between the US and Russia, which was back in the 1960s. More than 50 years ago, Russia had just put the first human in an orbit around Earth. Thus began the great space race to the moon against Russia. NASA won that race by landing the Apollo 11 spacecraft on the moon in 1969. Since that day, we've seen lots of cooperation between the US, NASA, and Russia, Roscosmos, on space-related projects. NASA even contracted with Roscosmos to transport our astronauts to and from the International Space Station. This time, both the US and China see their moon programs as only the entry point of a larger plan for exploring, settling, and possibly using mined resources offered by the moon, Mars, and other space objects. The US is very concerned that any Chinese gains in space exploration and technology will increase that country's influence around the world. Is China in a space race with NASA? And if so, who is winning? China was not invited to join the team in the 90s that was assembled to create the International Space Station because the 5 founding partners felt China had no technology to add to the project. Subsequently, in 2010, Congress passed a bill known as the Wolf's Amendment that prohibits NASA from working with China on any space-related projects. China had no choice if they wanted to explore space but to go it alone. And alone they have gone. The ISS, International Space Station, is nearing its end of life. The initial contract between the 5 parties involved, NASA, Roscosmos, Russia, JAXA, Japan, CSA, Canada, and ESA, European Space Agency, expires in 2024. NASA wants to extend the ISS contract to 2030. However, Russia and Roscosmos have not agreed to the extension. The Outer Space Treaty, which was signed in 1967 by over 100 countries, has been the governing document for space since. Well, times have changed. Private industries has become involved in space travel and projects, especially here in the US, where NASA is contracted with SpaceX to shuttle its astronauts to and from the International Space Station. NASA made a decision a couple of years ago to attempt to cover the fact that commercial companies were now involved in space travel and issued a document called the Artemis Accords. The Artemis Accords are a series of bilateral agreements between the United States government and other world governments participating in the Artemis program. The Artemis program is an American-led effort to return humans to the moon by 2025, with the ultimate goal of expanding space exploration to Mars and beyond. Drafted by NASA and the US State Department, the Artemis Accords establish a framework for cooperation in the civil exploration and peaceful use of the moon, Mars, and other astronomical bodies. Currently, 21 countries and 1 territory have signed the Artemis Accords. However, Roscosmos has declined to sign. China was not offered the opportunity to sign because of the Wolf Amendment passed by Congress. Over a year ago, China and Russia announced a joint project to develop an international lunar research station on the moon. The International Lunar Research Station is planned to be developed concurrently but separately to the United States Artemis Lunar Exploration Program. Recently, China successfully landed a spacecraft on the backside of the moon. China also successfully launched a mission to Mars, which included an orbiter, a lander, and a rover, all successful. More recently, China successfully launched its Tiangong space station orbiting the Earth. With the launch of the Venetian Lab module scheduled for this month, the first phase of its Tiangong space station will be complete. At the International Astronautical Congress of 2022, which was held in Paris recently, China made a presentation titled International Cooperation Prospects on China Lunar and Deep Space Exploration Program. China is looking to build partnerships for its upcoming missions to the moon and deep ventures into the solar system, and announced that 28 nations have applied to develop projects on their space station. China stated they have accepted 17 applications, but not one from the US. Yes, China and NASA are in a space race. With the problems NASA is currently having getting the Space Launch System, SLS, launched on the Artemis 1 mission, China's recent successes really stand out. NASA needs to have a successful Artemis 1 launch very soon to stay competitive in this new space race. Who do you think is winning or will win the new space race? Give us your thoughts in the comments below. In the meantime, thank you for watching. If you liked the video, hit the like and subscribe buttons. And remember always, failure is not an option. Bye.